Motion. Daniel, how did you enjoy Motion?
Oh, Motion. Oh, it was my favourite. Hillsong United was there from my own backyard. You know, I was sitting there and I was like, oh, there's Joel Houston, Tyre Smith. I don't know if it's Taya or Tyre. I don't care. I'm like, when she hit that high note for Touch the Sky, I was like, oh, yes. I love Jesus and her. I love them both. Yes, please, Lord. Thank you. Worship was amazing. And then Christine Kane, she came in there. She was yelling at you because you're on Snapchat too much. You got too much Twitter. You got too much Facebook. And he was on Twitter and Facebook the whole time, wasn't he? Wasn't he? Yes, you saw it. Yep, that's right. I'm sorry, I had to throw you under the bus. Down under the bus.
I can't believe you called me out. I was posting for y'all that who didn't go. But, real quick, are you excited for next year?
Am I excited? Yes, I'm excited for next year. Come on.
And guess what we already did? We pre-registered, bought tickets, so next year we're on the floor. On the floor. So, you're a tattletale, so get out of here. You're done. You're a tattletale. Go. Those Aussies were on fire, y'all. Like, they were seriously on fire. So, are you guys excited for a new series? Are you guys excited that you guys will be in school this time next week? I'm not going to lie. I'm so excited because I cannot wait for my mornings to be quiet anymore at the YMCA because you guys will all still be in school. So, some of y'all won't. Some of y'all will be at college. So, whoop, whoop. So, I hope y'all, I'm excited. I figured some of y'all would be excited about it. So, but hey, so this month we're getting ready to start a new series. And what's going to be fun about this month is I'm going to kind of talk to you guys about choices and talk to you about choices that got me to where I am today and how I got here. So you'll get to hear some of the bad choices I made. You'll hear a few of those tonight, which are pretty much half of the stories I've got for you. And then you'll hear some of the good choices I made, which I think is maybe one story that I've got for y'all tonight. So you'll hear about these things. But with our choices, a couple things that we don't get to do sometimes is choose as far as how we look. We don't get to make choices about us. If you haven't noticed me, that I kind of have a big head, okay? And as you sit in this room, you're thinking, yeah, Adam, I know you're full of ego. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the actual size of my head. If you guys look to my side, look at this thing. This thing is massive, okay? I didn't choose this. I honestly feel like right now what we should do is just let's like cue some worship music. Let's take a moment and let's just lay our hands on Emily because in about a month or two, she's going to be giving birth to something that's kind of going to have this, okay? The size of this head. So I'm just saying over the next couple months, you guys spend time praying for her. I came out like 10 or 11 pounds. So y'all just pray Addie is not that big. So I was huge. So a couple other things that I cannot change about myself. I sweat profusely and for no reason. I don't know why. I don't know if you noticed, but when Pastor Brandon Matthews was up here a few weeks ago for our Q&A series, I randomly just started sweating for no reason. Like, I don't know why. He was talking, and I suddenly started feeling it stream down my face. I'm like, oh, my gosh. And then it gets worse because I'm nervous because I'm thinking, like, please, God, don't let them notice. Please, God. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, yep. And I'm trying to be all, like, cool about it so you guys don't notice. And I'm like, oh, man, that's a good point, Pastor Brandon. Exactly. And I'm just trying not to, and I can feel every bit of sweat just running down my face. So those are just a few things for me that I can't change. There's nothing I can do about it. That's who I am. But I'm stuck with those. But you can make choices. And sometimes when you make choices, you guys think that it's the best choice ever. That was the best choice I ever made. A couple examples is some of you in this room may hear a song on the radio, and you think, oh, my gosh, that Taylor Swift song, best song ever. Say it again. Oh, gosh. It is a One Direction song. Some of you in this room right now are thinking, that One Direction song, best song ever? Best song ever! Am I wrong? How many of you in this room said that? I know you're in the car and you're like, oh, my gosh, I love this song. This is fantastic. Shiloh's over here. He knows. And then a week later, he's thinking, did you guys hear that other One Direction song? It's fantastic. Shiloh's your One Direction fan, guys, just so you need to know. Food. How many of you guys like food in this room? A lot of you in this room probably say, hey, that was the best burger I ever had. That was the best choice I ever made to order that. The only time that you should talk about food and best ever is when you're talking about Chick-fil-A. That's it. That is the only time. Each of you know from me how much I love Chick-fil-A. I fully believe when we get to heaven one day, you're going to walk through the gate and go through, and the first thing to your right, you're going to see a Chick-fil-A sitting right there. Because I fully believe that God is in the back of every Chick-fil-A laying his hand on every sandwich that comes through. He's probably, God, please bless this sandwich as it runs out to this. That's why they taste so good. They're blessed. It's the only time. Some of you else in this room probably say that your coffee is the best ever. Some of you are like, yes, I would like to have the mocha chocolate latte with cream, put a little caramel on the top. I need 3 shots of espresso. Make sure you put ice, but not just too much ice. And then I don't want it too hot, but just a little bit cold. And then go ahead and just throw in some more Frappuccino, and that's what I need. Best Starbucks ever. How many in this room, that's you? Scarlett, you're getting pointed to by a few people. Is it you? Yes? Best. Some of you think your Starbucks is way too good. But that's your other one. So those are a couple choices that you guys make. You think that that's the best choice ever. That food I have, that music, that coffee, it's the best ever. Nothing else can top it. But is it really the best choice ever? Is it really the best ever? Because next week you're just going to have something different that's going to be the best ever to you. So when you make decisions, what makes your decision truly the best ever? What makes that the best choice you've ever made? What that is when you have a moment in time that you can look back to something and think, hey, I got to where I got to today because of that choice. That truly was the best choice ever. That truly was the best choice that I could have made. Because in reality, what happens is the choices that you make today determine the person you become tomorrow. The choices that you make today determine the person that you become tomorrow. For me, this was back in college. I lived in Nebraska. It was where I went right after I graduated high school. I went to a little bitty college called Southeast Community College. And when I finished there, I had been dating a girl that went to a different school outside of where I was in Lincoln, Nebraska. And you guys will make fun of me because I may or may not have met her on hotornot.com. So my wife knows this story. Yes, I did. Met her on hotornot.com. That was a bad choice when I was in college. But I was dating her, and so she wanted me to go to the school that she went to. It was called Midland Lutheran College. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go to school here. They had a football program. I wanted to play football. So I had that choice. Now, during the summer, after my first semester at Midland, I decided that I wanted to come back to Alabama. She was wanting to get a little serious. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't want to commit to it. So I just said, I'm just going to run away from the whole situation, and I'm just going to move back to Alabama, away from Nebraska. But if I hadn't made that choice, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have moved to Alabama. I wouldn't have moved to Birmingham. I wouldn't have lived in Montgomery. I wouldn't have had to got to play football at a college in Montgomery if I hadn't made that choice. Because in reality, it's determined, your future is determined by your current choices. The choices that we make today determine our future. That affects where we go, what we do. A couple examples for you guys is things like who you date. Who you're dating right now affects who you'll become. Think about yourself as far as dating somebody that may or may not treat you the way that you should be treated. And if you date somebody that doesn't, maybe they don't show you time, or they don't participate in the things that you do, or they don't act like they care about you, what in turn it may keep you from dating somebody else later on in life. Because that choice that you made to date that person may affect how you are later on down the road. The people that you hang out with right now, they could affect where you in turn end up down the road. Depending on what you do with them. Where do you guys hang out? What do you talk about? What do you watch? What do you participate in? Those people that you spend your time around, you essentially become those people. And so those choices that you have in spending time with them may essentially keep you from becoming somebody you else shouldn't be. Or maybe it's what you associate yourself with. Things like, for instance, maybe you associate yourself with sports. So maybe you come down the road and you end up playing in a college, or you end up getting to play. Maybe you make it to pro ball because you associated yourself in high school and college with sports. Maybe you associate yourself with academics. You spend your time studying and working and making sure that you do good on your SATs and your ACTs. That's what you do. You put the effort into that. That determined who you became. Now, you guys are teens. Okay, some of you in this room really just want to make a choice just to get by. But I want to go off a moment and just go off script for a moment and kind of tell you guys, it's this generation, you guys have the choice. Now matters, the choice that you make. I truly and genuinely believe this generation is being made, is being formed to combat all the crazy things that are going on today, all the rules that we see that are done, or the laws that are passed, or just craziness that we see in this world. I truly believe your generation is the one that's being made to change that. You guys are coming up in that. You're the ones who are seeing that day in and day out. And I think that you guys, and I believe that it's you that is going to change our culture, because you're going to set the course for what happens on down the road, because now matters. The choices that you make now truly matter. God has placed you where you are right here, right now. In this moment, this very moment, God has placed you where you are for a reason. And he's placed you here for a reason because God has great things for you. He's placed you here. He's placed you at the school that you're about to attend. He placed you what school that you go to now, because God is going to use that. So now matters. When you make these decisions, you may end up being that person that down the road you regret what you do. For me, my one regret that I have came from when I was in high school. I regret not spending more time doing what I did with my youth ministry. I was a pastor's son. I had all the chance in the world to really like lead and to do things and to participate in our youth ministry, and I didn't. I just ran around. I was the crazy one starting the food fights, a.k.a. Pastor Brandon. I was the one starting food fights, doing stupid stuff. I was known as the one who was always getting in trouble, truly fitting the image of what a pastor's kid was. That's just the kid who always gets trouble in church. And that's who I was. And where I really realized that I had messed up and kind of wasted my time was when school was over. I remember to this day, all the seniors in our class that were a part of our youth ministry got this little book, and it was a book of quotes, what we could do, where we would go, how we could change the world, all these things. But in the beginning of every book, our youth pastors wrote to each and every one of the students that were part of the youth ministry. And each of them, they wrote things like, "You did so well. Thank you for leading this small group. Thank you for being a part of the worship team. Thank you for helping put this mission trip together. Thank you for putting together this retreat. Thank you for serving here, serving there." Everybody had these things written in their book, how great they did. But for me, when I got mine didn't have any of that because I wasted it. All I had in it was, "Hey, thank you. We loved having you here. We love you. Thank you so much for being a part of our youth group." It said something along the lines of, keep God in your vision, keep looking at God, focus on God. We love you, Adam. And that's all that was in it. And I regret that from high school. I regret not spending more time doing the things that I could have to really influence him, because I don't know how strong I would have been if I had focused and been anchored in my youth ministry the way that I should have been. Now, you guys, I'm sure you've made trouble. You've made things where you've said something or you've done a decision that you already regret. How many of you guys have decisions that you regret now, today, maybe this week? You've done something, said something that was stupid. I'm going to give you guys an excuse, okay? Okay? I want you guys to take your hand, and I want you to point to your forehead. Okay? I'm going to show you a picture on the screen real quick, and I want you to say out loud with me, prefrontal cortex, right here. Come on, some of you aren't pointing. Some of you aren't pointing. Prefrontal cortex. Say it out loud. Does anybody know what this does? This is the decision-making center in your head. This is where your decisions are made, your prefrontal cortex. Now, for you guys, it's not fully developed, okay? For myself, I still have no idea why. My wife will tell you mine's probably not fully developed either, okay? But at your age, your prefrontal cortex, it is not developed yet. So you have an excuse. So when you go home tonight or you do something stupid and you're like, "Hey, Mom, Dad, it's okay. My prefrontal cortex, it ain't ready yet," okay? It's still baking. When you guys are at home and you're bored during the summer and you don't have anything to do and you're trying to think, "Hey, guys, what y'all want to do tonight?" I mean, I don't know. I don't want to do the same thing. "Hey, I have an inflatable pool in the garage. I have some cardboard boxes, some helmets, and I've got a couple like knee pads and a ladder. I totally think we should see if we can jump from the roof into the inflatable tub." How many of you have done something stupid that way? I'm looking at Daniel because I really feel like he has. He's like, I did that the other day. Your prefrontal cortex is not ready yet. That's why you made that choice. So when your leg's broken, you call your mom. And Mom and Dad, it's okay. I know there's blood in the pool, but my brain, it's just not ready yet. So you make those mistakes. For me, I had this happen. I'm going to show you proof that mine has not fully developed yet. Most of you guys know Ryan is one of my best friends in the back. Guys, I almost killed Ryan. No, legitimately, I almost killed Ryan. How many of you remember when we went to Airwalk? It was a fun time. It was the first time that Ryan and I had ever been before. I was exhausted. I don't think I've ever jumped that much and sweated that much. And I had a party foul and decided to wear jeans. That was like a rookie move. Should never have worn jeans, just in case you ever decide to go. So I remember coming off the trampolines, and I got to sit down. Ryan's sitting down over there, and I'm like, dude, this is no joke. Like, I'm exhausted. Ryan goes, I can picture that. I know. I don't feel good at all. I feel kind of sick. I'm like, why don't you just go walk it off? You'll be fine. I remember kind of looking to the right, and I'm still talking to him, and I hear this noise hit the ground, and I'm like, I turn back, and I see this. Don't judge me. I see this picture. This, and I go, Ryan, what are you doing? Are you that tired? I'm like, oh, dude, ha, 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 ha. Pull my phone out, and I'm like, snap, 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 snap. I can't wait to show this to your wife because you guys are so tired. I actually did go take it to Jana and was like, hey, look, Ryan's just laying down on the floor. No, Ryan wasn't laying down on the floor, guys. Ryan legitimately was passed out. I mean, he was out. You would think when you look at his hands, nobody lays that way. To this day, have no idea what was going through my mind when I saw this. To this day, Jana still reminds me when I do something stupid. You remember that time you almost killed my husband? I don't think I'll ever let it go. Our children will have that, hey, you want to know that Uncle Adam, he almost killed your dad. So it's not going to happen. But, again, I make bad decisions. Ryan got a little bit of payback, though. This past week at Kids Fest, I made some bad decisions. Pastor Brandon Doss was trying to kick some boxes with his feet, and Shiloh was holding, and he was doing a very bad job, guys. I mean, I think he was kind of scared to hold the box. So, of course, the famous words that Pastor B has told me several times this week, Shiloh, you're weak, I'll handle it, let me do it. So I go to hold the box. Pastor Brandon just dominates that thing straight into my hand, and I swear I thought it snapped. I just dropped the box, and I walk to the back, and I go sit down, and I'm laying down with my hands, my legs between my head between my legs, and I'm like, oh, God, I feel sick. Oh, God. And the first thing I'm thinking, I'll be like, guys, please don't tell my wife. Please don't tell Emily. Please don't tell her. And I'm leaned over, and I hear somebody walk up to me and say, oh, Charlie Kate wants to give you a kiss. She's sorry. That was a lie. This is what was going on. Do you notice who's in the background? You notice the smirk on his face? In his mind, he's like, you remember when you almost killed me? And then on top of that, bad decisions also lead to this post that I got from Pastor Brandon while we were at Motion. I got a message that said, you've been tagged in a photo. I'm like, oh, sweet, Pastor Brandon's tagging us in a photo that says, oh, praying for the kids at Motion. I'm excited there at Motion. No, I find this. If you don't see what it says at the bottom, this is what it looks like when a student pastor tries to show up a teenager. He breaks his hand. Ha ha. So, bad choices. Immediately regretted holding that box. Immediately regretted trying to call Shiloh out because I ended up being the one that got hurt. So, what becomes our standard? What becomes our standard when we're making choices? How do we choose what we should base the choices we make off of? Because in that moment, like when Ryan was asleep, that I thought he was, or when I thought Shiloh didn't know how to hold a box, I didn't think it was a bad idea. I thought, oh, hey, it's funny. Oh, hey, I'll hold the box. I didn't think that. That wasn't my standard at the time. But in all seriousness, our standard needs to be God. When we choose our standard for our choices, it needs to be God. God should be the standard in our lives all the time. If we believe that God is the standard, then we believe that God knows what's best for our lives. If we believe that God is the standard, we believe that He is the one making the choices in our lives, not us. that he's the one making all of these decisions, that he will choose what's right and what's wrong for us. When we lose trust in ourselves and we lose trust in the decisions that we make, that's when we lose trust in God. When we tell ourselves or we tell God, hey, God, no, I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to hold on to this tight. I got this. I don't need you to help me with this. This is me. I can make the right choice. I can make the right decision. But when we choose to let God be our standard, we believe God is in control. We show that we trust him, and we know that he knows what's best for us in our lives. John 10:10 says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the fullest. Do you guys believe in that God? Do you believe in a God that truly wants us to have a life and live it to the fullest? A God that wants to have you live life to the fullest and use you every single chance that we get. Sometimes this view that we get of God is skewed. We look at this God and we think he's a fun killer. He's boring because the Bible is nothing more than a bunch of rules and regulations of how I should live my life. We look at God as someone that doesn't want us to go out and party or have fun or do these things. He wants us to be the straight and narrow, to stand for what's right all the time. We look at God as that, but God's standards are great standards for our lives. God's standards are what we should live by every single day. Because it's not about, yes, I definitely just said babe. It's not about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. That's not what God's standards are. God's standards try to show you that he has great things in store for you in your life. That God's standards are going to lead you exactly to where he wants you to go in his life. A hot subject for you guys that we get sometimes is the subject of sex. When we had our Q&A, each night we had questions from teenagers asking about sex. It's a hot topic. And a lot of times in churches, we get this image that churches say, hey, don't do that. Don't have sex, because if you do, you're going to get pregnant and die. You're going to get pregnant. That's all that happens. You get pregnant and you die. But see, guys, that's not the standard. That's not what the standard is. The standard is God's standard. What God's standard says is that later on in life, you're going to find somebody. And you're going to find somebody that you truly care about. And you're going to find somebody that you love. And find somebody that you get to experience things that you've never experienced with anyone else. That's God's standard. God's standard is the standard of marriage. So when we look at those things, it's not this object of do's and don'ts. It's this object of how we're supposed to do things based on God's standards. There are good standards, and then there are God's standards. Good standards are things like, hey, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't be selfish, don't be jealous. Those are good standards to live by. But God's standards are things like love and joy and peace and kindness and faithfulness and selflessness and faithfulness. Those are God's standards. They are bigger than do's and don'ts. So there's a difference between your good standards and your God standards. So wouldn't you rather be somebody that follows God's standards, not somebody that just follows the good standards that we have in our life? Because this is what I wrote down. There are no don't do's, but there are be these things. That's what God tells us. There are no don't do this. There is be these things. Some of us in this room are so busy living a lifestyle of religion. We look at religion as something that we have to do to get loved by God. That through our works, God loves us. But that's not what it is. That's not the relationship we should have. In reality, we should be living a relationship. We should be living a relationship with God because our God is a living God. That's the difference between religion and relationship. You want to have that relationship where no matter what you do, no matter the choices you make, no matter where you mess up, God loves you no matter what. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. If you're sitting here today and you're bored of God, or you feel like your life is just uptight, that you can't move without doing something that's wrong, you're doing it wrong. You're living a lifestyle that's wrong because you're not experiencing the freedom that God gives us. You're not experiencing the freedom of God. When we live in God's standards, that's a way to live for God. A way that God is on the move in your life. God is ready to change things because you're not living uptight. You're not living in a way that you don't ever make any decisions. What you're doing is living in God's standards because that's where he wants you to be. Experiencing God on a daily basis. When you experience God on a daily basis, people around you can see it. People around you know, hey, there's something different about that person. There's something different going on in that person's life because they're living through God's standards. We've talked before about Adam and Eve. And we've talked about the tree of knowledge that sat in the middle of the garden. And have you ever wondered to yourself, why is this tree here? Why is this tree just sitting in the middle of the garden? And we know the story where God tells Adam and Eve, hey, you can eat from any other tree in this entire garden, but don't eat from this tree. Don't eat from this one. Anything else you can have. Why in the world would God put a tree in the middle of a garden where we can have everything we want but this one thing? Because in that moment, in that very moment, God gave us a choice. God allowed us to choose. Do we choose the garden or God, or do we choose death? Because that's exactly what God said to Adam and Eve. Genesis chapter 2, verse 16 says, the Lord commanded man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. Now, did Adam and Eve die right away? They ate from the fruit. Did they keel over and die like you're watching some type of Disney movie where you eat the Wicked Witch's apple and they're done? No. They didn't just die right away. When God wrote this, when God put down, you will certainly die, he meant later on in life. You see, Adam and Eve had the chance to live as long as they wanted. They had the chance to live with God in the garden and have whatever they wanted in their lives. But because of their actions that day, because of what they did, they chose death. They didn't choose the garden. They chose death. They chose to die. They chose to spend the rest of their life working, breaking their hands, breaking their back, bleeding just to survive. Because they didn't experience God. They didn't experience the freedom that God gave them. They experienced their own freedom. They experienced what they wanted the most. When it comes to making the right decision, I know in my life the right decision that I ever made was doing this right here. I've told you guys the story before of how we started Cultivate Students, what we went through about Emily knowing the Brandons in high school and all the decisions that were made to lead up to here. And that's all well and great, but that decision has led to massive things. A year ago, we started with one kid, Daniel, going to baseball games with Emily and I, like it was a mom and dad and their little bitty kid, just hanging out. To last week, we took a team to Motion. I mean, we got to experience youth ministry with other youth ministries. We got to be looked at as a real youth ministry. We had pastors coming up saying, oh, man, I love your kids. I love what y'all are doing. I see it on Instagram. It's so awesome. I mean, in total, we took 10 people to Motion, which seems small, but in the spectrum of things, that's huge because that decision was made. Every Tuesday night, you see people like Daniel come up here and do transition. Guys, he was scared to death day one. Like, he was more scared than I was when I did my first transition in front of the church. And y'all have heard that story. You've got people like Melanie and Scarlett that lead worship every single Tuesday night. And then this past Tuesday, tonight, not past Tuesday, tonight, you got to watch Shiloh do it. Because the decision was made to start Cultivate Students. And then on top of all that, you got to watch Scarlett and Melanie lead worship on a Sunday morning. Guys, that's never happened. That's the first time in Cultivate students' history that a student has been on a platform leading worship. I think that deserves a little bit of praise, does it not? Think about it, guys. Everything starts with the drummer, and that's what Scarlett did. Leading worship, doing drums out of her comfort zone because the decision was made to start Cultivate students. See, guys, it truly is what you do today affects the person you'll become tomorrow. If these decisions to start Cultivate students, if these decisions by some of you guys in this room tonight hadn't been made, it never would have happened. Another example, you got to watch Hannah and Jackson this past week acting a fool up here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday during Kids Fest. Guys, you're impacting, not only are you impacting people outside of Cultivate Church, but you're impacting the lives of kids. At least 60 to 70% of those kids don't even go to Cultivate. And you got to meet them, you got to teach them who God was, and you got to show them who he is. So what is it in your life that you're not in control of? What is it that you're holding on to right now? That you're saying, no, God, I don't need you to help me with this. I'm going to handle it. This is mine. I'm going to follow my standard. What do you have right now in your life that you're holding on to that tightly? That you won't let go? God tells us that if we release those, if we were let go of the things that we want to hold on to and not let him have them, God is going to give us this rich, full, fulfilled life. It's in his word, guys. It says it right there. I want you to have a rich and full life if and only if you let me have it. I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and bow your head for me tonight. As all heads are bowed and all eyes are closed, I want you guys just to think about that. Some of you in this room, this message kind of hit you in the head. When you thought about it, you thought to yourself, I am living a religion. I'm living a life where I feel like the decisions I make are going to lead God away from me. That I have to do what's right to make God love me instead of living a relationship. You've been living for yourself. You've been living this lifestyle where you don't want to let go of the things that go on in your life. You want to hold on tightly to them. And I want to challenge you guys, if that's you, I want you to do two things for me tonight. One, I always want you to raise your hand so I can be praying for you. If you got something you know you got to let go, just put your hand up. Nobody's watching. All heads are bowed. All eyes are closed. I see that hand. I see those. I want you guys to also write it down on that card for us. I want to spend time this week praying that you'll give it over to God. You'll let him go. Maybe there's another group of people sitting here tonight that you say, I've been living my own life forever. I've always had this image of church being this stuffy thing, this thing that keeps me from doing what I want to do because it's nothing but rules and regulations for my life, and I haven't been ready for that. But you hear that tonight, and you think, I should be living God's standards. That God's standards aren't these rules and regulations. God's standards are something that are going to allow me to have a life that is full and loving and massive, and that's what he wants for me so badly in my life. Guys, there's no steps to it. There's no special prayer. There's nothing that you got to do something specifically to get there. All you got to do is have a relationship and talk to God. Talk to God. Open your heart for him. Tell him you want him to help you make those decisions in your life. The decisions that you know that you won't, when you get down the road, you won't regret those. If you're ready to experience a relationship with a living God, A God that sent his son to die on the cross for us. Guys, he sat up there and watched his son hang. But you know what? He died and rose again 3 days later to wipe you of every sin that you've ever had. And if you're ready for that relationship, I challenge you, just put your hand up for me today. Put your hand up and start that new relationship with God. If you're not ready to put your hand up, if you got questions about it, write it down on that Connect card that Daniel talked about. God, we love you. Each and every week we thank you for these students that are here tonight, God. And I pray that the message they heard, it struck a nerve inside of them, God. And I pray it's something that they take and they hold on to and they understand when they go on, when school gets ready to start here, that they're going to start with a brand new object in mind. That they're going to start with living this school year, living this life for you. That they're going to make the choices that are your standard and not our own. God, we love these students. I thank you for the students that made the decision to say, hey, that's me. I'm living a religion and I'm not living a relationship. And I pray that as they go on this week, as they go on next week and the weeks on from here, that they'll continue to seek after you. They'll continue to chase after a relationship because all you want is a relationship with us, God. Lord, we love you. We thank you for everything that you have planned in our lives. We thank you for everything that you're going to be doing. In your holy name we pray. Amen.